Welcome everyone to the first, we believe the first ever connected joint Marketing Cloud, Salesforce Developer Group and Mulesoft Trailblazer Group meeting ever done anywhere in the world. So we've connected the groups together and we're going to talk about connecting Marketing Cloud and Mulesoft together. So we've got about 26 on the call now. Probably it'll hover around 30. Please put questions on the chat as we go through. Do you want to hop on to the next slide, Joy? Fun fact about this event, which I just shared with everyone. I think our motto, together being the two groups, is really just to learn stuff, to share stuff and help each other with stuff to do with our platforms. That's the only way that we all get it, is just to work together. So these sort of collaborative events just make such a big difference. You want to hop on to the next slide? So, Joy, would you like to introduce yourself, Nathan? And then I'll go last.
Sure. Okay. Once again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join in. I'm Joy Sabal. I'm originally from Philippines, so I'm based now in Auckland, New Zealand. I'm one of the Mulesoft ambassadors, and I'm working as an advisor solution architect at DXC Technology. Nathan?
Thank you for that, Joy. Hello, everyone. I'm Nathan Blaga. I am an associate marketing cloud developer at DXC Technology. Sorry. I have been in marketing cloud, the tech industry, and DXC for just coming up a year next month. So I'm new to the whole thing. So it's a pleasure to meet everyone, and I'm very eager to learn and grow and make a lot of friends and build a network with everyone here. And it's an absolute pleasure to be here today and work with Joy and Matt. So thank you, and take it away, Matt.
Not a problem. My name's Matt Cameron. I'm a community group leader for the Salesforce Marketing Cloud Dev Group. Just in terms of what we've got coming up, obviously we've got the event today. Next week, Elliot and Vlad in Australia will be doing a wrap-up of Dreamforce from a Marketing Cloud perspective. We'll be doing a workshop the following week on how to digit records inside Marketing Cloud. And we've got an event which hasn't been published yet, which will be published soon, which will be at the end of the month, which will be really a bit of a dive into Datarama. So that's sort of what we've got this month planned. And we've got a couple of events for next month planned as well. But probably don't need to say much more. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And it's great to see everyone again.
All right, so thanks, guys. For today, the agenda is to discuss what are the challenges faced by the retail sector, which is our industry of choice for this presentation. And then we're going to talk about what do we mean by connected consumer experience, because you're going to hear a lot of that today. And then we'll find out as well how Mulesoft and Salesforce Marketing Cloud address this business challenge. And then we're going to have an overview as well around the Salesforce Marketing Cloud for those new to it, and also the Mulesoft. And the exciting part, demo, we're going to have two demos. One is for the Mulesoft and one is for the Salesforce Marketing Cloud. And then conclusion. So without further ado, let's get it started. So challenges faced by the retail sector. So first, consumers are choosing multi-channel buying experiences. So at the moment, we've got this online and offline shopping experiences. So the focus is on, creating a second to none customer experience across all channels. The right customer data can help them creating an omni-channel customer experience, which allows consumers to interact wherever and however they wish by incorporating real-time feedback across channels and devices, engaging the customer wherever they may be. So second, customers expect a seamless experience. So if they made an online purchase earlier in the day, for example, the in-store systems should already have a record of it. So centralized customer data can help retailers build a seamless, fluid experience, beginning with an easily accessible customer profile, including the loyalty programs. So next is customer experience is the biggest contributor towards brand loyalty. While promotions and offers can certainly contribute towards helping customers, so as customer, we wanted to feel like we're special. So what's the key to an outstanding experience? And that is personalization. So lastly, rapid changes in digital marketing from SMS to email and social media, multi-channel communications are essential to engagement, which in turn drives the creation of the perfect customer experience. So the right technology and communication are the key to ensure all arms of a marketing team are on the same page. So having a clear strategy will ensure all channels are working together instead of against one another. So saving time and money. So I've been mentioning about connected consumer or customer experience. So what do we mean by this? So for the purpose of this session, we define a connected experience as an organization knowing your preferences across all channels and or being able to provide you with access to the information you need in a timely manner. So as consumers, we all have experienced massive shifts in expectations. We are no longer loyal to brands, but rather to the best consumer experience. So it's not only retail customers with elevated expectation, there is an increasing demand from small to medium enterprises who deserve these connected experience as well. So for the purpose of this session, the best way to deliver this is to provide you a sample use case in the retail industry, and that is really common, which is around the shopping cart abandonment. So as you can see, we've got a bunch of numbers in this slide. So I just wanted to show to you like what's the business impact and how this solution could provide the a positive impact to your business or to the business owners. So around the world, the Asia Pacific region has the highest cart abandonment rate at 80.72%, followed by America 71.4%, and Europe at 68.83%. So more than 75% of cart abandonment happens on mobile. And what are the reasons? So 3 of the top 5 reasons for cart abandonment is centered around what? Centered around convenience. So long delivery time frames, a complicated checkout process, and being required to create an account. So what's the impact of this cart abandonment to the business? So e-commerce brands lose $18 billion in sales due to cart abandonment. 26% of shoppers buy the same product from a competitor after cart abandonment. 30% of online shoppers purchase the same product at a later date after cart abandonment. So the abandoned cart email statistics, emails, we're gonna focus the demo on that. And as you can see here, the emails have a 45% open rate. So half of the users who open a cart abandonment email will engage and 21% will click through. Meanwhile, about half of the click-throughs result in a purchase. So nearly 40% of abandoned cart emails recover sales. So that's based on Omnisense e-commerce statistics report on the first half of 2021. So now we've talked about the business challenges, the impacts to the business. Now let's move on to the proposed solution. So Salesforce Marketing Cloud and Mulesoft could deliver a connected service experience. So in this connected world, it is no longer enough for customer to be simply reactive. So service representatives need to be empowered with information and tools to provide proactive and personalized experience or service. To achieve these expectations, service organizations need to transform. So Salesforce Marketing Cloud is predicted to be one of the most in-demand products from customers using Salesforce. So the principal reason behind this choice is because business now understand the value of marketing to a customer on their preferred channel, whether that's social media, on-site advertising, or email marketing. How about MuleSoft? So MuleSoft makes it possible to pull these data together. It is now possible to track customer reactions to marketing through direct and indirect mentions, sentiment analysis on social media, and their browsing habits on the organization website or app. All of this can then be used to create personalized messaging and to continually adjust a customer's journey in real time based on their actual and predicted behavior throughout the sales process. So in order to build a better customer experience, businesses are fundamentally rethinking their integration strategy in order to build new products, provide personalized engagements, and improve existing experiences across diverse applications, whether these apps are running on-prem, in the cloud, or in a hybrid environment. So to provide you the business process flow and components flow of the proposed solution, I'll hand it over to Matt.
Thanks, Joy. And touching on that research that Joy mentioned before, one of the awesome things about doing an event like this is you sort of sit down and you study stuff. And I was having a look at Google Scholar, and marketing, it highlighted to me it's not just about what we do. It's not just about bits and bytes. It's about humans, and it's about motivations. And sort of some research empirical research I came across, which was done a few years ago, about shopping cart abandonment, found, there's a big concern about the overall cost, and that's why people might abandon. And I'm just reading my notes, but people organise a cart as a wish list. People are doing product research. They might do this before they go to a real store to do a purchase, or they might be just doing it for entertainment. So they're the foundations that we're sort of building on. And through Marketing Cloud, when we enhance through the connectivity and creating a personal experience, we can get a greater sense around that. We are limited with this, and we are just talking about the opportunity of shopping cart abandonment. So let's have a look at our process flow. We've got the 4 swim lanes here. We've got the customer, we've got Stripe, we've got MuleSoft, and we've got Marketing Cloud. The first 2 processes here have nothing to do with MuleSoft or Marketing Cloud. It's the customer in a Stripe shopping cart abandoning their cart. Now, it's Stripe. Stripe's popular, very, very popular e-commerce platform. You can have on the API for the product that's been sold, or when the users in the shopping cart, you can have a callback set up so that you can get an abandoned cart. You can get a copy of the cart that the person was in, and they can also prompt for permission to send promotional materials to those people. And that will produce a callback which can be listened to by MuleSoft. So Stripe. So we've got that first part of the process where we've got the customer doing something in conjunction with Stripe. We've got callback from Stripe that can be made available, and then it can all be orchestrated by MuleSoft. Now, we're keeping this really simple. It's just going to be MuleSoft and Marketing Cloud, but the orchestrating the next best action inside MuleSoft could go to a CRM, it could go to a data warehouse, it could do all sorts of things. But it's about that seamless experience and a foundation. This is just a foundation for lots of things that could be built on top of it. And we're going to perform a customer journey in Salesforce Marketing Cloud, and then we're going to return an email to the customer so that the customer can hop back into that shopping cart and do something positive or do something next. Can you share this next slide? So MuleSoft, listen for Stripe callback, decide how to best action route the request. Other orchestration can go on there, but in our example, we're going to talk to Marketing Cloud, and we're going to talk about how that works. We've got an automation of journey in Marketing Cloud, which will then send the journey, send a email to the participant. Then we're going to wait 24 hours because if the customer keeps going back into the cart, we don't want to spam them. So we just want to wait before we send something more to that customer. So that's the real high level of how we're putting this together, or our point of view around this. Joy, do you want to pick it up again? Oh, sorry, Nathan.
I believe it's me, but
okay, so that's going to just dive into how it works inside Marketing Cloud. And remember, some of this stuff's going to sound crazily simple to the Marketing Cloud people, but it's about how we communicate with each other. MuleSoft and Marketing Cloud are like two separate products, two separate gaps, and we're learning how to collaborate as well. So that's one of the reasons that we wanted to do this, is share our languages, share how we talk about stuff, because we're just finding we're doing more product work together. It just makes sense to share this stuff together. So that's why we're sort of doing this as well. We didn't sort of highlight that before. Sorry, Nathan, I'm rambling on about why we're doing this.
That's okay. Thank you for that, Matt. So hi everyone. So I'm going to take us through an overview of the Marketing Cloud portion of the demonstration. Now later on there will be a recording which I'll walk us through, and that'll give us a little bit of idea in terms of the connector being set up in Marketing Cloud, a business unit we'll be using and the benefits of it, and more importantly the data extension itself. Right now I just want to look at an overview portion and really get to the nitty-gritty of this demonstration, and that is creating a very personalized and a very efficient and effective journey for our customer to go on. So the question is then, how do we set everything up so that customer can be injected into the journey? Well, looking at this diagram, we start off on the left side at number 1 with MuleSoft. So Joy will take us through the MuleSoft side of things and how the data is extracted from Stripe API and then injected into Marketing Cloud. So MuleSoft takes the data and uses the connector, which we'll set up in Marketing Cloud, and inject it into a data extension within Marketing Cloud called Abandonment. For anyone here who might not know what a data extension is, if we have any MuleSoft or any other third-party members, hello, greetings. Data extension in Marketing Cloud is simply, think of it as a table in a relational database. It has fields, it can have a primary key, several primary key. Data extensions can be a standalone, or they can be relational and connect to other data extensions. So we now have a data extension in Marketing Cloud that has the data. What can we do with that? Well, using Automation Studio, we can create an automation that is run and scheduled to run on the hour. And basically what happens every hour is it will look at this data extension. Hey, has there been any updates? Has there been any new records injected into this data extension? Yes, great. That can then lead to another activity, a fire event activity. Essentially what this activity does is it will check any journey that has the data extension, in our case, Abandoned Cart, as its base audience, its entry source, and it will be injecting those customers into the journey builder. Once the journey builder is a nifty little platform within Marketing Cloud that helps us build and construct very powerful and customizable journeys. So we have a journey. The automation has just injected the contacts, the customers within this journey. We have set it up so we're looking for a contact evaluation at the start, where we're filtering on a simple field called status. And the status is pretty much set to false straight off the bat. We did this so we don't have a spamming of customers being taken through the journey and just keep sending them through without a proper reason for doing so. So if they fit the criteria and they're injected into the journey, great. They will then be sent an abandoned cart reminder email. This email will be using AmScript, which is basically a Marketing Cloud in-house scripting language that allows us to highly customize text messages, emails, and landing pages using fields from relative data extensions and really giving that high customizable effect. It allows us to be more efficient in getting our message out to customers and a higher chance of opening. Now, within this journey, we also have a nifty little activity within the journey itself, engagement split, which allows us to keep track of the email, whether it's been sent to, opened by, or clicked on by our customers. Now, we have another automation running in the background that is going to take this information from our data views. Data views are essentially like data extensions, but they're just built-in system data extensions that keeps track of particular information. In our case, sends, clicks, and opens. We are going to use an automation to write a SQL query and take that piece of information and put it inside another data extension. This data extension, codename response, will be used by Mulesoft to extract that data from our Marketing Cloud and back into their line of things, where they can use that for further investigation, future marketing ploys and tactics, and just allow us to have this kind of full circle of getting customers inside Marketing Cloud, addressing the issue of an abandoned cart, directing them to that abandoned cart, and then redirecting any information outside Marketing Cloud back to Mulesoft. So that's an overview of the solution at hand. If we could just go to the next slide, please. So looking at an overview of what I will be going through in the demonstration, and what I've kind of covered on is the Marketing Cloud connector, which will be taken in the demo. This is kind of like the nuts and bolts and the like centerpiece of our solution. This essentially allows us to connect Mulesoft and Marketing Cloud together, and this is what gives us the power to allow Mulesoft to inject the relevant data within our data extension and extract it back for further use if need be. In the demonstration, we'll go a little bit into business units and what they're primarily used for, the purpose of them, how to find an MID, which is a unique identifier for each individual business unit within Marketing Cloud, and this is going to be essential for the call that's going to be used on the Mulesoft side. We're going to look a little bit more into depth into what data extensions are, where to locate them, the configuration, and really understanding the schema. As a Mulesoft developer, I understand that it's very crucial to understand the data extension you're working with, understand the schema before writing to that data extension and using it. Journey Builder, we've kind of gone over the purpose. It's located in Journey Builder, and its configuration and its purpose and the power of it in Marketing Cloud. Automation Studio, again, quick glimpse into that. And I know sometimes it's overlooked, but it really is the heavy lifting done behind the scenes. We don't get to see it all that often or give credit to it, but it is very powerful and very essential for great workflows within the Marketing Cloud. And of course, Content Builder allowed us to build a customizable email that has AmScript and personalization screening at its heart, allowing us to customize the email to our specifications. So with that out of the way, I will now pass it back to Joy, and we will then go through the Mulesoft section and portion, and then into a little demonstration. Thank you, Joy.
Thanks, Nathan. Hi, everyone. I'm back. So we're going to talk about now the Mulesoft part of the solution. So as you could see on this slide, we've got 3 layers. So we call this methodology API-led connectivity approach. So for those who don't know about API-led connectivity approach, this is where we have three layers of APIs: the experience, process, and system APIs. So I'm going to talk about each layer. So first is the system API. So the system API, it enables the data out of the backend services. So for this example, we've got the Salesforce Marketing Cloud. It could be any backend services like a native database, an SAP, or anything. So the purpose of this is not only to enable the assets or to unlock the data out of these backend services, but also to secure or govern, protect and services, because some of the legacy backend systems, they don't have really a standard when it comes to security. So that's what the API is for. So we front it with API. We expose the data using the different endpoints, and then we apply the out-of-the-box policies. So that's for the system API. And this layer actually, this is for reusability as well. So in Mulesoft, we wanted to achieve this composable enterprise, and I'm gonna talk a bit more of the composable enterprise, but basically this is where we reuse the APIs. Where we reuse the APIs, and also if ever there's a different consumer, they just need to reuse that system API. So for the process API, this is where the orchestration happens. So for example, you've got two systems or two system APIs. So one is SAP and then one is Salesforce. And you wanted to make this two in sync, the data, right? So you're going to have a process API that will do the business logic, the business rules, and for example, extract the data out of system A and then inject it to system B. So that's what the process API is for. So it's not just about data transformation, but also, applying the business logic through our data wave tool, which is our transformation tool. Which I'm going to show later during the demo. So going up, the experience API. So this is the layer wherein it's very specific to the consumer. So if it's a mobile app, if it's a website, or if it's a B2B, so for example, Stripe and Salesforce Marketing Cloud. So we create an experience API for them. So the purpose of experience API is to transform the data. For example, they only accept XML, and we expose our system API as a JSON format. So we could transform it at the experience layer from JSON to XML. And it could be a different contract from a different consumer. So that's what the experience API is for. And also, if you wanted to, if there would be a future integration on your organization, say, cool, we've got the Stripe now integrated with Marketing Cloud. Now we've got an initiative now to have, for example, Pega to get the data out of Salesforce Marketing Cloud. So what are we going to do? We're going to create an experience layer for the Pega. We don't need to rewrite whatever we have in the Salesforce Marketing System API. There would be instances that we need more data out of Marketing Cloud, and hence this is where we extend the capability of the system API. So for example, you're going to add more endpoints. So initially you'll have a post request, and then to the next use case, you need to retrieve data. So you'll have a get request, or you have existing get requests, but you wanted to add more attributes. So that's how it works. You just need to add or update the system API, but that's not really a big change. And so you don't need to build from scratch, basically. So that's how we design the use cases using the API-led connectivity approach. Now, if we have more use cases now, 160, for example, use cases, this builds what we call an application network in MuleSoft. So we treat our APIs as an asset or product, and that's why we publish it to the Anypoint Exchange. So in Salesforce, you've got App Exchange, right? As I remember. So in MuleSoft, we've got Anypoint Exchange. So this is our marketplace of APIs. So we publish it there to make it discoverable and ready to consume by the API consumers, whoever needs them. So an application network emerges organically, project by project, as more and more teams make their projects available for use, because access to every project's assets are governed by APIs. So not everyone would have an access to all of the APIs, and that's why we've got the API manager wherein we apply the API policies. So we govern it, for example, OAuth, client ID enforcement. We've got, what else? We've got JWT. So those are the out-of-the-box policies. So as depicted on this slide, an application network consists of business applications, which you could see on those white circles, whose capabilities must be combined to implement business processes. Composable services, which are the dark blue circles, connect to these applications and either expose some of their capabilities directly as APIs or combine them with other applications to expose APIs. So that's how we're going to achieve a composable enterprise via application network. So the good analogy of this is when you're building Legos. So that's the application network. Now, Nathan mentioned about the Salesforce Marketing Cloud connectors. So MuleSoft have bunch of out-of-the-box connectors. It could be MuleSoft supported. It could be developed by the MuleSoft partners. Yeah, so there are different types of connectors. So what we're going to focus on this session is around the Salesforce Marketing Cloud connectors. So if you have access to the Anypoint platform. So Anypoint platform is our unified iPaaS integration platform as a service solution. And then if you have a MuleSoft license at your organization, you could ask for an access to Anypoint platform. Otherwise, it's very easy. You just need to sign up at anypoint.mulesoft.com. And then you'll get a free 30-day trial. And then if you wanted to extend, you just need to raise a support ticket to MuleSoft. So once you've got an access, you could navigate to the Anypoint Exchange, which is our marketplace of APIs. And then there would be different tabs there. One is private on your organization, like assets on your organization only. So meaning, it's not public. Not everyone could access that apart from the users that are registered to that business group. So you call it business unit, we call it business group. And then there would be provided by MuleSoft, and you will see this Salesforce Marketing Cloud connectors. There are a few. They support Mule 3. So we've got a runtime version. So we've got Mule 3 and Mule 4. Both are supported by the Salesforce Marketing Cloud connector. So once you see this it has all these information. It has the versions as well at the right side. And then these are hyperlinks. So feel free to read through the connector references. How could you use these connectors? And what are the new releases? So if it's a MuleSoft supported connector, they're open for feedback. You could provide your feedback in Anypoint Exchange. So you could rate an asset if it's 4 stars, 5 stars, and then provide a feedback. and then they would evolve the product. So they would evolve the connector. So you'll see those release notes. So yeah, that's the Salesforce Marketing Cloud connector. And what we're going to use to this presentation is the first one, which is the Marketing Cloud connector Mail for. And it's not only Salesforce, but there are a bunch of out-of-the-box connectors like for AWS, for SAP, for MongoDB, and so on. All right, so let's proceed to our demo. Okay, so first, like what I've said, we need to have Anypoint platform credentials. So you'll sign up at anypoint.mulesoft.com. And then once you have the access, you'll see this home page. So on the left side, these are the different components of Anypoint platform. And that's why we call it unified iPaaS solution. Because on the other hand, the technologies, not, for example, the competitors' technology for integration, they have that core technology integration capability, but they don't have their own API management. So that's where you're gonna choose, for example, Kong, API Gateway, Apigee, but in the Anypoint platform, there's already an API management. So that's the API manager. Then we've got Design Center, which is the starting point of our full API lifecycle management, wherein we'll create an API specification, an API contract. So once we created the API contract, which I'll show you shortly, we'll publish it to Exchange to make it discoverable. So the API contract, remember the system API, right? We're mimicking the backend services. We're putting an API in front of it. So whatever contract your backend services has, whatever data you wanted to expose out of your backend systems, you document it to your API specification. So what are the attributes, the data types, minimum, maximum length, if it's required or optional, what are the examples of it, and so on, which I'm going to show you later on. So the Runtime Manager, so once we publish the Exchange, so Design Center first, and then Exchange, publish it. And then once we publish it to Exchange, so I'm talking about the API full lifecycle management in a nutshell. So once you publish it to Exchange, you'll create an API instance in the API Manager. So in the API Manager, this is where we apply the out-of-the-box policies. This is where we secure our APIs. So client ID enforcement, OAuth, it's not only security, but also quality of service like HTTP caching and also logging as well, we could apply. So there are a bunch of out-of-the-box policies, and you don't need to do extra coding. So if all of these things didn't meet your business requirements, there's an option that you could create your custom policy, which is great, right? But so far, everything are in the out-of-the-box policies. So there are some organizations that has a unique business requirements. So that's when they create the custom policy, for example, using Java. And then once you create the API Manager instance, as a developer, for example, I'll start writing or creating the API implementation via IDE, which we call Anypoint Studio. I'm going to show later on. And then we pull the RAML specification. So I'll show you later on. Actually, it's better to just play it and show. All right. So Design Center. So this is how the Design Center looks like. So in here, we've got so I've created already an API specification called Sfmc Campaign System API. But if you wanted to create a new one, so just click Create New and then API Specification. So we have a RAML 2.0 as our latest specification language. So we support as well the Open API specification, or also known as Swagger. And you could also integrate this with the GitHub, so you have this traceability of what's been changed. You could branch out, you could follow the Git flow if you're familiar with that. So yeah, for the sake of this demo, I've created already the Sfmc campaign system API, and if I open it, I would see the API contract. So in here, we've got the title, description, protocols, accepted, media type, which is application JSON. So we're going to expose the system API in a JSON format. And then we've got data types as well. So these data types are the expected attributes of Salesforce Marketing Cloud out of Stripe. So in here, you could define which type. If it's a string integer, you could enhance this as well to add the minimum and maximum length. So this is not just for the sake of documenting the API contract, because actually this contract would be beneficial to the developers, because we generate an API kit router. So the API kit router validates the request without doing extra code, just importing this API specification, and it will validate it. So that's one of the good selling point of Mulesoft, which is the API kit router. And that's why we document this data types here. So for this demo, we've identified one endpoint, which is the notify abandonment. And then we'll use the post request. So you could enhance this to add more if you want. Like, for example, if you want to extract data out of that extension, then introduce a get request. So once you're happy with the API specification, the next step, like what I've said, is to publish it to Anypoint Exchange, which is our marketplace, to make it discoverable to the API consumers. So once we publish it to Exchange, before we publish it, we will have the lifecycle state. So this is just a recent change to just let the developers know if this is a stable version, or if it's a development, if it's still ongoing development. And then we version it. So that's where the asset version on top. So asset version is different from API version. The asset version just focuses on the RAML specification, and the API version focuses on the API implementation itself. So remember, contract and then API implementation. So API implementation, this is where the heavy lifting happens, the data transformation, which I'll show you later. And then we'll publish it to Exchange. So you could import as well. If you have ready-made RAML specification, you could do that. And now to the Anypoint Exchange. So you'll see here on the left side. So there's like DXC, there's a provided by Mulesoft. So since it's a private asset, so it will be under DXC, and then the Salesforce Campaign System API, which I've created. And then you're going to open that. And this is where your, API documentation, Yeah. So this is where the API documentation is. So in a modern world, we have this modern documentation, which is the Anypoint Exchange. So you could create multiple tabs on the left. So we've got the API Anypoint Exchange documentation best practices, which I presented I think last year, and then you can follow that. So this is where you, for example, you document how this API be consumed, like how to request access to this API, the operation run books, like who's going to support this API, who to contact. And then you've got a testing tab as well, like how you're going to test this API. And then the automatic part is this API summary. So this API summary, if you click that, you'll see the contract that we've created in the design center. And if you click that post request, you'll see here, the example in a JSON format. And then the good thing about this as well, once you publish the API specification in the Mule 4 version, it actually creates a REST connector automatically. So that REST connector, for example, other developers wanted to use this API because they wanted to publish a message or post requests to Marketing Cloud. So therefore, they're just gonna log into their they're gonna use their IDE and then just pull down this asset with the connector. And then on the top right, actually not top right, but just if you see that AnyPoint mocking service endpoint. So once you publish it as well, it automatically creates a mocking service endpoint. And this is very beneficial because, for example, if you've got two teams running in parallel, the development, and you don't have anything yet with your API implementation, but you have a static response, then you could give them this endpoint, say, you could use this. It will give you a static response. So that's the beauty of the mocking service endpoint. So once we publish this to Exchange, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the development of this API. So this IDE, we called it AnyPoint Studio. So here we do the dragging of the components and all other business logic. So here I'm going to name our Mulesoft project Salesforce Salesforce Marketing Campaign System API. So from here you could log in to Exchange and download your API specification that we created. And once you've imported that from Exchange or from Maven, so you'll log in. So you'll see that username on top. So you could log in. You could add different accounts as well. And then you'll see that Salesforce campaign. So just add it and then import. So it's downloading. And then the next thing is it will scaffold the API specification. So you'll see here. So after that, it will automatically create the different flows in your Mulesoft project. So see, you've got the API kit router, which I've mentioned. So this is where, once you hit the endpoint, it will validate first the request if it complies to the contract. So if it's string, integer, minimum, maximum length, required, optional. So from that point, we're designing our API to be fault tolerant. It doesn't reach the back-end system to validate things. We validate it upfront. So API kit router is like a defense mechanism using the API contract that we created. So take note, we're not doing any coding yet. This is just importing and scaffolding the API specification. So at the bottom, you'll see as well different error types for the API kit router. And then lastly, the post notify abandonment flow. So this is what we're gonna we'll focus on, which is the post notify abandonment call. So in here, we're gonna log into Exchange now to download the Salesforce Marketing Cloud connector, because we're gonna connect to Marketing Cloud. So we'll navigate to the connectors provided by Mulesoft. And then you'll see those assets. And then, yeah, so there's connector for Mule 3, and then Mule 4, and then REST connector. So we're going to use the Marketing Cloud connector. So it's disabled because I've already added it. But if not, you'll be able to see. And then there would be reviews there as well, the connector reference, release notes, the version, and all. So once you've added that to the project, it will be there on the Mule palette. So you'll see the different components like create entities, which injects or loads the data to data extension, and all other stuff that you could play around against the Marketing Cloud. So first things first, we'll sort out the connection to Marketing Cloud. So we've got the username, the service URL, and then so the service URL will come from the Salesforce Marketing Cloud, and the underlying language of the connector is a SOAP web service. So take note of this. So that's why we're gonna use a SOAP service URL here. So the test connection is successful. Now we're gonna do the data transformation. So in the data transformation, this is our transform message component, which we use to transform the data. So at the bottom, you'll see there's an input and output. So this is our data weave transformation tool. So as you know, integration is about messaging, right? So this is where we transform from Java to JSON, JSON to XML, XML to JSON, back to Java, and blah, blah, blah. So the input on the left is the example request, for example, from Stripe or from whoever's gonna do the transaction. And on the right side, this is where your Marketing Cloud's contract is. Like, what are the stuff I have to load to Marketing Cloud? So this white thing on the bottom right, this is editable. You could, there are lots of different data weave functions that you could use. So you could, there are time zone, function as well, converted from UTC to Auckland, UTC to Sydney. So it's well documented in docs.mulesoft.com. So just search for data weave. And then there's a playground as well. So if you are lazy to download the Anypoint Studio, there's a data weave playground. So just search in Google data weave playground, and then you could practice your data transformation. So you could identify as well the errors in design time. Take note, it's design time. You don't need to run it. So it will show you if there's an error in your syntax, or if there's something you're wrong, if you're missing a close bracket, a curly braces, a comma, or whatever. So it will notify that during the design time, not runtime. So the next thing now is we'll transform the request from the Stripe to the data extension, and then the response from Marketing Cloud, we're going to transform it because it's a Java object. So what we get from Marketing Cloud is a Java object, and this is something that is not presentable to the API consumer, right? So we wanted to make it unified, that our system API would expose a JSON format. So therefore, from JSON to Java, that's just going to Marketing Cloud. Now, out of Marketing Cloud, that's going to be a Java to JSON. Does that make sense? So we're going to extract the status code, the status message, and the customer key. And that's our success, response. So with the error, you can do that as well. So Marketing Cloud throws an error, description, error code, request ID. There are a bunch of, like, you could see if you're developing this in a Mulesoft, you could see that schema in Anypoint Studio. So, so that's for the request. For the response, this is how it looks like in Marketing Cloud. Yeah. There you go. So we're not converting it to JSON. And then we're going to log that response. So we'll just need to, to have it as an entire payload. And then you could change the level of logging as well from info, for example, debug, error, warning. And then now we'll run it from here. So we use the Maven. So if you're familiar with Maven, so the underlying of the Mule 4 projects are, is Maven. So we use Maven to manage our dependencies. So if you notice, if you're familiar with Maven logs, that's how Maven logs looks like. So it's like an Ant build back, 1990s, but now it's Maven. So if you could see here on the left, once it's deployed, it creates, so the Anypoint Studio creates a console specifically for your run. So you could use that URL, you could open that, or you could use the Postman to run your request. So in the Postman request, you just need to specify which endpoint and what's the sample JSON request body, and then just hit the send button. So yeah, and then it will give you the response. So this is the response we built via data wave transformation, right? So this is not static. This is coming from Marketing Cloud. So we just map it to our, success schema, which is in the JSON format. And then the contact key as well, which is really important. So the next thing is to verify if this record has been inserted to the Salesforce Marketing Cloud, which you can see here. So that's the end of our Mulesoft presentation. So now I'll hand it over to Nathan to explain what's going to happen after this.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Joy. That was an amazing presentation of the Mule side set of things. So let's start.
Just before we do kick off on the Marketing Cloud demo, do we want to just take a quick break? I saw a few questions in the chat there. Do we want to answer those now? Or do we want to come to them at the end? I think the demo that Nathan's going to go through run for about 5.5 minutes. It's high value for people in Mulesoft to understand the other side of what happens with these transactions from Mulesoft to Marketing Cloud and backwards. So matching up that terminology and having that language. We speak Marketing Cloud language, Mulesoft talk their Marketing Cloud language, and making them meet. There are a few questions there, so I guess let's watch the presentation we've got now, and then let's dive into some of those questions, because I think there's some really good questions about how it all works together, and what there's one there which is how much can we connect into Marketing Cloud with? I think that's a brilliant question. But whilst Nathan goes through his presentation, if anyone's got any questions, please get them into the chat so we can follow them up at the end, because there's some real good stuff here. I'd love to hear the answers to some of this stuff as well. Sorry about that, Nathan. I just wanted to call that out. Please don't go. I know we've been going for a while, but there's some really valuable stuff here. So let's get a Q&A done too, because it's special.
Thank you for that, Matt. If you don't mind, Joy, just pressing play, and we'll start on the presentation, and I'll begin explaining what's happening Marketing Cloud-wise.
All right.
Thank you. Oh, there's volume. Yeah. Oh, great. Okay.
Can you hear it? No, because if I unmute it, it stopped.
Ah, okay. Okay, never mind. I'll just talk over it again. So right now I am in the Marketing Home, homepage. I've logged into my Marketing Cloud account. And just like Matt mentioned earlier, this is more an quick introduction overview for MuleSoft side of developers, just so they understand when they're trying to use the connector and the data extension, what they're expecting in Marketing Cloud itself. Now, for this particular demonstration, I decided to create a business unit called Integrating MuleSoft and Salesforce Marketing Cloud. So why a business unit? Well, business units are separate workspaces within an organization for an organization in Marketing Cloud. They allow for different teams or departments within the same organization to, manage their data and their content. Now, I've just clicked on the little arrow and I actually have my Marketing Cloud there, business unit. And I also have access to my MID, unique member identification code. This is going to be important for the actual call itself and for MuleSoft to actually connect to the right business unit and Marketing Cloud itself, and then access the data extension and essentially insert it. Now, for the data extension itself, this can be, data extensions in Marketing Cloud can be created, read, updated, and deleted in Contact Builder. Email Studio also provides us interaction to actually use and update and create data extensions, along with Content Builder and various other features. Now, right now, I've navigated to my folder of choice and I found my data extension Abandonment cart. So if we click on it and open it up, once again, for anyone who is new to Marketing Cloud, a data extension is simply a table with fields, the same you would find in a relational database. On the right-hand side, we see the schema, the fields of the data extension. We have name, which is just basically identifying the name of the field, the data type. There are several various types in Marketing Cloud. We can select a length, a primary key, a nullable type to say if it can be nullable or not, and of course a default value. As you can see, current date has the default value of current date, and we've set status to false, as I've explained earlier in the demonstration. Now, we also have on the left-hand side the ability to see that if this data extension is sendable or not sendable, and basically that allows us to specify whether or not this data extension's records can be used as a base audience for sending communication, i.e. data extension, mobiles, and whatnot. Another important factor is to keep in mind that in this case, we have a sendable data extension. Its contact key, which is its primary key, has a send relationship and map to the subscriber key on the all subscriber list. Very short to anyone who doesn't know, all subscriber list is a very high level, in a very high level fashion. It's a list that lists specific subscribers within our Marketing Cloud account who have opted in to receive emails from that Marketing Cloud account. Now, with our particular data extension, as shown here, as mentioned, it's a sendable data extension. It's also a standalone data extension. Data extensions can be standalone, or they can have a relationship with other data extensions, like tables within a relational database. We can have foreign keys and primary keys mapping to each other and kind of showing a relation between data extensions and tables. And in our case, we just have a standalone data extension, which is sendable, and we will be using the records that will be injected into this data extension as the base audience in our journey to send our communications going forth. So if we just can press play, please, and we'll continue on with the remaining section of the presentation. The last bit to know is it is possible to edit fields once data extension is created. This allows us to update any fields and add any fields as we go forth with the journey and the automation and just the overall structure. Once again, in Content Builder, it is a much more feasible place to really update and really have CRUD functionality with our data extensions in Marketing Cloud, but it is possible to do some CRUD functionality within Email Studio. So that's the email in question now that we have created that. So the next bit is setting up the connector, which is kind of the crowning piece of the Marketing Cloud portion. And the connector essentially allows MuleSoft, as Joy explained it, and Marketing Cloud to kind of pair up, share, and be able to connect to themselves in various ways. So right now I've head up to my name, clicked on Setup, and I will be going down to Platform Tools, Apps, and Installed Packages. So essentially a connector is just a simple installed package that can be installed within our Marketing Cloud account and specific to our business unit. So we have a selection of packages. We're going to create one, give it a name of our choice. And then once we create it, it will just create a simple package that will generate a package ID, JW signing secret token if need be, and the status. We're now going to add a component. We're going to create an API integration and choose server to server. This will allow for extra credentials such as the client credential for authorization to be created. Now, it's taken us to the scope page. Now, this scope allows us to assign the accessibility of the connector. In other words, MuleSoft will, by this scope, have certain selection of accessibility. In our case, we just want data extension to be read and write option. It's best practice, as we all know, in Marketing Cloud with scope to give the bare minimum needed to complete a job. And voila, we have an API integration created with client secret, API, and everything needed for MuleSoft to make that API call, whether it be to get the authorization, have access, and then actually inject the data extension with the records.
And wow, we've got after all of that, we have a bandit card email. So fantastic. With a recovery link, which was given to us from Stripe. So Stripe pushed this data through. MuleSoft, as we've learned, orchestrated it to get into Marketing Cloud, and Marketing Cloud sent this out. And if we were to go, and we won't, but if we were to go back to the process flow, the next step's up to the customer, and hopefully they'll click on that recovery link, or they'll do something more to learn more about the products and services that business has to offer that they have been interested in. Questions. I can see that we've got a few questions down the side there. Do we want to kick off with the questions and run through those?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I've got a couple, and some of them are pretty simple. Joy, can we connect the Salesforce Marketing Cloud from MuleSoft using a Salesforce Marketing Cloud API endpoint, or do we only have to use a connect there? Now, I think you've answered that already, but it's either or either. Is that correct?
Yeah. So you could use the web service consumer connector, which is designed specifically for web services. So by the way, that's the underlying of the Salesforce Marketing Cloud connector. And then you could use the HTTP request connector as well if you want to access the REST API of Marketing Cloud. So the thing with the out of the box Salesforce Marketing Cloud connector is it's very specific to Marketing Cloud's configuration. It's basically the same thing, but it actually shows you what you only need to connect to the Marketing Cloud.
I often think of the connectors like wrappers. They're
just wrapper basically. Yeah.
Exactly. So we could have done this whole example. We didn't, because we wanted to showcase the connector, but we could have also done the example using a Salesforce Marketing Cloud trigger event to start the journey. So we could have done it that way as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have been real time, and that might have made more sense from a business user case, but because we've got a bit of license here what we're doing, we wanted to showcase the connector. So that was one of the questions there. There's a couple more around the API. Joy, does an API in MuleSoft need to be set up for the Salesforce Marketing Cloud connector? So I saw that there was a bit of a deep dive in there. Do we have to do that deep dive to get the connector set up, or is that optional?
So API in a context of building it in Anypoint Studio, yes, because that's the only way you could use the connector. If you create a MuleSoft project and then deploy it to Cloud Hub or on-prem. So yes, the short answer is yes. You need an API to do that, and that's what the API-led connectivity, right? So we're putting an API in front of the Salesforce Marketing Cloud if it's acting as a producer on this piece.
Yeah. So there's two parts to the process. Next question from Vishal. What are all the Salesforce Marketing Cloud objects, data extensions, journey automations, mobile connect, etc., supported by the connector? So we saw showcased now about data extensions, reading and writing data extensions. Does the connector also enable us to do other things like start automations or perform queries or do other things in the platform, or is it just about data extensions?
Yeah. So 6 months ago, when I played around the Salesforce Marketing Cloud connector, it's just one connector for Mule4, which is the Salesforce Marketing Cloud connector on top, and that's what we've used on this presentation. So yesterday, I found out there's a new connector, which is the REST connector. And if you read the description, so what are the use cases you could do? It says automating marketing campaigns, which probably our next topic, if you guys are keen,
Definitely.
or as well. So see, it's drive targeted campaigns, blah blah blah. So the thing to find out is to read the connector reference and see what are the stuff we could do and test it, right? So potentially, yes, it's beyond data extension, as you can see here. So the product is evolving.
I saw somebody raise a hand. And is that Alex? You'll have to pop yourself off mute.
No, that's okay. Thanks for letting me join. Yes, I'm really interested in that. I was just sort of raising my hand to express my interest.
Awesome. That sounds like a follow-up, Mulesoft. Then what we saw on the page, and this is another question we had there, connector Mule4, I think it said, to go back to the comments. Is that what it means? What is Mule4 mean on the Salesforce Marketing Cloud connectors page? Is this the Mule runtime version, or
yeah? So it's the runtime version. So remember, we've got control plane and runtime plane. So the control plane, that's where we do our access management, the exchange, and those stuff, those components.
Yeah.
So the runtime plane, that's where we deploy our APIs, right? And we use this different runtime version. So the latest is, I think, Mule 4.4, if I'm not mistaken. That's the latest one. And then there are, until now, using Mule 3.9, which is going to reach the end of life in the next 2 years. And that's why there would be a bunch of initiatives around Mule 3 to Mule 4 migration. And these two are, there's a big difference around, the Mule 3 to Mule 4. It's not only the features of like the UIs and all the data weave, from data weave 1 to data weave 2, from MUnit 1 to MUnit 2, but also the performance, the streaming. So those are the major updates for the Mule 4. Yeah.
So that question earlier about the REST performing a journey, for example, with the REST, that'd be a different connector, or is it still the same connector just with a different base?
So it's the same connector but different version. So
Right.
in Anypoint Studio, you could see the different dependencies, different connectors. So like, for example, HTTP connector for request and listener. And then there would be a mechanism in Anypoint Studio wherein it will show you if there's a new update or new version. And then you'll update it to the latest and greatest. And that's the best practice, to update it. Yeah.
I could see I'm going to pronounce your name wrong. Hansher, you've asked a question there. Do you want to read your question out? I'll just pop you. You have to pop yourself off mute.
Sorry, which question is that, Matt? Is that from who? Okay, so does MuleSoft supports a use case to do transformation of customer data and send the transformed files to Sfmc FTP location? Absolutely. Like MuleSoft could do that. And that's a different pattern, right? So from FTP to FTP, from one file server to one file server. What do you call your file server again, Matt, for Marketing Cloud?
Sorry, what do we call
your file server?
File server. It's just a file server. It's just it's SFTP. There's also a thing inside Marketing Cloud called Save Files, but that's actually a file system which is exposed. So it's a file system you can't access via SFTP.
So yeah, you can do that.
But in Marketing Cloud, there's 2 steps to getting data out. Save Files and then SFTP.
Yeah. So in that case, you're gonna use a so for example, from one file server to the Marketing Cloud file server. So you could use we've got the out of the box FTP and SFTP. So secure file transfer protocol. We've got MTP or MFT as well. So these are the connectors that you could leverage to achieve that pattern, because it could be, a REST to REST call like this presentation, and could be a REST to FTP. It could be FTP to FTP. It could be FTP to REST. So different patterns, different connectors.
So doable.
Yeah, it's doable.
Like the schema. Would you like to read your question out? And I'll read it out if you don't want to. What data types can be supported? So I'm gonna have a go at answering that. With the connector, it's whatever's been defined in the data extension, but also from what I saw, also on the API. So we've got to set up those schemas inside MuleSoft, and we've got to define what the schema types are, so that the connector can rest on top of the API. Have I got that right, Joy, or not?
So the data types supported in MuleSoft in general, there are a bunch like JSON, XML, CSV, flat file. So if you could feel free to check it out in MuleSoft documentation. But the data types that Marketing Cloud Connector expose is Java. So it's an object. So that's why I did the transformation in the demo, because that if you don't transform it, it would be like binaries or special characters in
so when the data comes from Marketing Cloud to MuleSoft, it's an object, and you're interrogating the object to
transform it into a presentable way, right? Yeah. Or to transform it in a way that your consumer's gonna acknowledge. So for example, your consumer accepts only an XML format. So from Java, I'll have to transform it to an XML, right? And that's the heart of MuleSoft. That's the heart of integration. It's messaging. So we do this kind of transformation. It's very common.
Yeah. A couple more questions. This is from Akesh. The install package code in Salesforce Marketing Cloud, is it used to publish the data back to MuleSoft via API? So is it both ways? I think is that correct? Is that the intent of the question?
Yeah, it's correct. So we descope the other way around, which is data extraction from Sfmc. So if you download the Salesforce Marketing Cloud Connector, there's a component there. So the component that we use to the presentation, we call it create entities. And that is to load the data to that extension. There's a separate component to retrieve the data. I think it's retrieve. You call it retrieve. So when you download the Salesforce Marketing Cloud Connector from the Anypoint Studio, or even if you just read it in the MuleSoft documentation, you would be able to to understand that, okay, I could potentially extract the data out of SFMC using this component. And yeah, so it's possible as well via connector. So
Yeah.
it's two ways. Yep.
Next question. Okay, it's still rolling in, so keep it up, guys. We'll keep going until we've got them all done. Loving the questions. Michelle, can we schedule some batch jobs, e.g., for push or pull data as well in Anypoint Studio, like we do in Marketing Cloud, Salesforce Marketing Cloud Automation Studio? So just Automation Studio, you can trigger automations to start with events. So it's a timer or a file drop. They're two popular ones. You can also use an API to start those, but I think that's what we're getting at with the question here. So can we schedule things to happen?
So there are two contexts in this question, Matt. So first is automation within SFMC from the Mulesoft, and the second is schedule job from point A to point B. So remember, integration is you always have a source and target system. So the source system, for example, we're gonna retrieve a file in in a schedule basis, in a an hour frequency. So we have an out of the box connector as well. We call it scheduler. So scheduler, you could schedule it via cron job. So if you're familiar with cron job, I believe SFMC is using cron job as well. That's supported, eh?
Something like that. Yep.
Yeah. So you could use that via by picking up the file from the file server if it's a pull pattern, and then you could potentially use the Salesforce Marketing Cloud REST connector to achieve the requirement around the automation or scheduling of marketing campaigns. And that's why I'm saying that there are two different contexts on this question. But the short answer, yes, it is doable.
I might just skip to another question around timing from Lakishma. And I'm going to answer this question. Do we have specific time intervals at which data refreshing can be done? That's going to depend on what we set our timer, the speed, and also on the endpoint, how quickly, how if it needs to be throttled, like how much load can we put on the endpoint, and if we need to do any throttling with the requests, we do. But I suspect Mulesoft's got a lot of flexibility there with timing.
So is this around extracting the data in a scheduled manner from out of SFMC? Is that correct?
The question is, do we have specific time intervals at which data refreshing can be done?
That's part of your non-functional requirements, right? So how often does your, for example, records in data extension gets changed, right? And that's when you timing your non-functional requirements.
Yeah.
Say if it's every hour, if it's every day, if it's weekly. And then you're going to use the schedule component from the Mulesoft to align based on the non-functional requirements, and then leverage the Salesforce Marketing Cloud connector to extract that data.
Yeah.
So once the schedule job kicks off, it will, the next thing is to extract the data out of Marketing Cloud.
Yeah. So if we think about a process flow that we had before, that was triggered by an external event, but that could also be a scheduler, which is...
Yeah, it could be scheduled. Yeah, it could be scheduled. It could be via REST call. Yeah.
And then, so that's pushing data to Marketing Cloud and then pulling data from Marketing Cloud. There would need to be a scheduler there. So there'd be a scheduler in Mulesoft with an automation saying, do this every 5 minutes or do this every 24 hours, depending on...
That's possible. That's possible. It's, for example, use case, syncing two different systems.
Yeah.
SAP and Salesforce, right? So these are very common. So once once there are new records, then kick off the schedule and inject those data to Marketing Cloud.
I guess also the connectors really built around a requirement where batch works well. If the requirement's more true real time, then the approach would be API event driven. Yeah.
Yeah, it depends, right? It depends. It's a case-to-case basis.
That's why they employ solution architects.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
What's your role, Joy? You described it before?
Yeah, I'm an architect, so what I do, I have to gather these requirements and document it.
Yeah, it keeps us all busy. I think this is our last question. This is from Shibu. Is there any limits that need to be considered with data volume transfers between MuleSoft and Marketing Cloud Connector? API have limits, but I presume the connector doesn't use the Salesforce Marketing Cloud APIs directly. I'll let you answer that, Joy.
Yeah, so there are limits, and we've had so many discussions around this, Matt, when we're
yes, we had lots of good
the project. So yeah, there are limits. I think 25,000. Is that correct, Matt? It's been a while.
On Marketing Cloud, the SOAP has some intrinsic limits built into it, and there are things that you could do to speed it up. But a payload is maximum 2,500 records, and then there's also a size consideration, and then there's how quickly you can make the requests to Marketing Cloud. SOAP doesn't run as quick as REST, so there are limits there. And it also depends on the version of Marketing Cloud that you've got. So there are limits, but it takes a lot to get there. Marketing Cloud's pretty robust. I guess MuleSoft doesn't quite have the same limits. It's depending. Then what other limits with MuleSoft? What drives the limitations?
The same. So whatever Marketing Cloud's contract is, we follow it. So because it's the back end who will throw an error to us, say that, hey, you've reached the limit of the records. So we don't really define that. It would be the target system.
Cool. So it sounds like MuleSoft can do anything. It's got to work within the boundaries all those other systems place on it. And that's a good point too, because orchestrating different throughputs and things, when you're working at scale, you just can't put two systems together and expect them to work. You've got to have a solution that, albeit sometimes simple, that does orchestrate these things to work nicely and be fault tolerant and just to make sense. That's the end of the questions. Thank you everyone for joining. We will get an email out from the Marketing Cloud Dev Group soon with a recording. We ended up doing this twice, so we're going to mash it together, get all the best parts of it out. The Q&A has been absolutely awesome. I feel as though we could do it again and talk about REST. So we might poll members first about that, find out if this is the topic, and maybe plan something for early in the new year. But thank you everyone for joining. And together we're all experts in the room, just trying to make sense of all this stuff sometimes. So your questions have helped everyone else. And Joy and Nathan, thank you so much for your efforts to make this happen.
No worries.
It's been a couple of months in putting it together, and I know we're all busy, and it's just it's great to see it come together today. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks
Thank you.
everyone. Really good questions.
Catch you later. Bye.
See ya.
Have a
Bye.
good night, guys. Yeah.